Thank you very much. Thank you. So that's Found Towns. That is the first song on the album Old Door Phantoms. And the idea behind this album, one thing that kept on going through my head while I was writing these songs was trying to communicate something or anything without the use of words. And because I don't sing and I don't write lyrics, although I wish I could do both of those things, that is the challenge that I'm faced with. And it's something that, like one of the biggest objectives that I've always had in trying to make my own music is that it's the connection with other people. I love playing for people in front of audiences, and I love that feeling of connecting with an audience, which happens on a good night. And it's hard to do when you're not saying words in your songs. So, like a lot of the ideas that go through my head about kind of connecting with other people are ideas that we all think about: love, compassion, or ways that we can identify with each other, whether it be love, loss, certain universal ideas that happen to all of us, that we all experience at one point in our lives, and so we all kind of know what that feels like. So these songs, for me, come from a personal place, even though they don't have words, although the titles have words, and the titles, I hope, can be evocative. But Found Towns is, that was a song that I wrote with kind of like the idea of being on the road and going to new places, not unlike Racine, Wisconsin, meeting new people, making new friends, coming up with new inspirations and new ideas, and that's something I enjoy doing very much, so it's very apropos to play it in a situation like this. The next song I'm going to play is called Bison Disciple, and Nick said he liked this title, so I've been vetted by a true literarian person, yes. And this song is about actually a road trip I took through, I guess at this point I was in the Badlands in South Dakota, and I was with my girlfriend, and we were driving. We were the only people there because it was pretty late. It was about, I want to say, the park closes at 7, and I think it was about 6 or so. So the sun was setting. It was an unbelievable sunset. If you've ever been to the Badlands, you know how unreal that place looks. Visually, it looks like you're on Mars or something. And we were the only people driving around the rim of the Badlands. There's a road that goes around the rim of it, and as we're driving, you can see pretty far because at least outside of the Badlands, it's pretty flat. And from a long way away, probably when we first saw them, it was about a mile away. These two bison just kind of like trotting towards the rim drive as we're going this way, they're coming this way towards us. And this keeps on happening for about a minute or two until, like, at some point we're only about, I would say, 100 feet away from each other. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna just stop and let them pass or do what they need to do, because you don't mess with bison, like that's a bad idea. So I took what I thought to be the safe choice, and then all of a sudden, when I stop the car, they stop as well. And they're looking straight at us. So I'm like, okay, well, we'll just wait this out, see what happens. So like, at this point, they were probably pretty close. They were probably about 50 feet away from us. I'm like white knuckled on the steering wheel. I don't know what's gonna happen. And then all of a sudden, there's about 30 seconds or so, which felt like an eternity, of neither party moving or doing anything. And all of a sudden, they get up and they continue to trot towards us or towards the rim road. And then they finally go into the middle of the road, and as they're passing us, and at this point, they're probably no more than like 15 feet away from us. the two bison start wrestling each other. They get into this tip, or so, I don't, and they're just like going at it, and I mean the force behind these, I don't know how much they weigh, but they're huge. Like you could feel it, them hitting each other, and that goes on for about 10 seconds, and they're probably just friends, and they're like playfully wrestling or whatever, and then they stop, and then they continue to walk past, and they just went about their business, and I was like, okay. Well, they're very clearly being like, don't mess with us, this is our land, like, you're the visitor here, reminder. Okay, noted, got it. So, it's one of those experiences that I'm sure many of us have had where we really experience the power of nature firsthand in a way that is beautiful and moving, but like scary at the same time because it's bigger than us. And those experiences, I think, are very valuable to ground us as humans. And I wrote this song for those two bison, and it's called Bison Disciples. Thank you very much. So that's a fun one to play live. So all this stuff is like, it's, I don't mean to make excuses for myself, but it is pretty hard to play this music by myself. It's a good challenge, as I said. And as an artist, of course, always trying to find ways to grow or opportunities to like challenge yourself. But that's a fun one to play. But this next one is simply titled "The Things I Don't Know," and there's not much to read into this title about. It's really, I wrote it at a time when very clearly, I mean, like there was just a lot going on in my life that were unknowns, and that were kind of like those stressful unknowns, like what am I doing with my life? Why am I doing this? This is stupid. Stupid. No, you know, stuff like that. Why don't I know more things so I'm not stupid anymore? Which is like kind of, you know, the journey of life, I guess. But this I wrote shortly before I moved back to Chicago from New York. I was living in New York for a long time, and I ended up back in Chicago under a weird set of circumstances. I was working with Lincoln Center, a music organization in New York, and they have opened a club in Doha in Qatar, which is in the Middle East. I've also heard it pronounced about 10 different ways, Qatar, so whatever your pleasure is. I don't even think the people that live there have decided on one way to pronounce it. But anyways, I was playing with a Brazilian singer in Doha for 2 months, and I wrote this right before I left for that trip. And even at that point was thinking about leaving New York, and it was just kind of a very, as I said, like kind of unknown time for me in my personal life. And this melody just kind of came out of nowhere, and as they often tend to do, weirdly enough. And it is kind of something that felt very calming and meditative to me. So I decided to make a song out of it. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much. Thank you very much. Nick, how are we doing on time? One more, sure. So maybe I'll close with something not of my own. I'd like to do a piece by the French classical composer Claude Debussy. And I'm not a classical musician, but I do love to listen to classical music, and kind of made a point of, well, my girlfriend is an opera singer, and she has very naturally turned me on to a lot of music that I have been unaware of in my time, and she's really a big fan of Impressionist composers, and the Impressionism period of classical music was mostly centered around France in the 19th century. And Claude Debussy is one of the most well-known composers of that era, and of classical music in general, and this is one of his pieces that I just kind of fell in love with the first time I heard it. And it's a short piece, but it's very beautiful and very evocative. And the title translates to "The Maid with the Flaxen Hair." Before I play it, again, I just want to say thank you to Carlo and to Moises and all the kids. They're not kids, they're teenagers, I guess, but they're not tweens, they're teens, yeah. All the kids that performed before us too, that was really inspiring. And Nick again, and everybody at Bonk, and everybody who helped put on this show. And thank you guys for being here and for listening so intently. It's really a pleasure. And I'm not trying to blow smoke up your behinds. It really is. It's hard to find. It's such an attentive audience and a plentiful audience too. It's really a pleasure. And if you feel so disposed, pick up CD on your way out, or at least sign the mailing list, whatever your pleasure. Thanks again. My name is Dave Miller, and hope to see you down the road. So much, you guys. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Really appreciate it. My pleasure. Thank you.